There's gonna be some royal F-bombs in this episode of Bewitched Banter. Content is explicit and not suitable for all listeners. You have been warned.
Welcome. You are listening to Bewitched Banter with two best friends.
One skeptical looking at you over there, Amy.
Yep, I'm here, and we got our resident believer, Krista.
And I'm here. We talk about the universe and all its divine beauty.
Or what I would call magical thinking.
She sure does. But really, we do talk about spooky, spiritual, some wacky religions, cults, and the paranormal.
And I bring us back to this flying rock and talk about how the science community debunks majority of this shit.
But she does need to get right with this flying rock and our Milky Way, the universe, everything out there. She got to get right, y'all.
Yeah, totally.
But speaking of cults, today we are actually kind of circling back a wee bit to our cults episode that Amy covered beautifully on all the way back on episode 4. Early on is when we did it, and Amy covered what it means to be in a cult. I'll recap a little of that today. But as we know, there's been a shit ton of press around the royal family, specifically Harry and Meghan lately. And so for anyone unlike me, who is not living under a rock, the rock of pop culture, which I often find myself hiding under from any shitty news of the world, Harry and Meghan are on quite the press tour these days. They launched their documentary and Harry's memoir, Spare, and to promote said book was recently on 60 Minutes. But in the book Spare, one of the biggest bombshells that Harry reveals is that he equates the royal family to that of a death cult. So that's where
I'm fascinated.
And again, as you know, Amy covered cults way back, and it's really fascinating. So I'm going to get into that a little bit later, just a recap of like what cult like things are to be wary of if your family members or maybe you're shit, and maybe if you're in a cult, maybe watch out for the things we're going to go over. Okay, before I get started, though, I have like a couple PSAs. Lost Connections, Craigslist style, for Myron, who was supposed to be my date on Monday, and the freaking app like fizzled out. And you know what, Myron? There's a chance that you actually unmatched me. That's cool, but
Is it cool?
Yeah, whatever. If you don't like me, that's fine. And
but he should have told you. That's rude if you don't tell someone.
That's true. But Myron, if you're listening,
that's disrespectful. If you have plans with someone and you just don't tell them, hey, I don't feel like meeting up tonight. I mean, it is the message.
I really think the app broke because, like I said, I was in there and it went like haywire. And then when I went back in, we were unmatched. So I'm hoping that it wasn't him because he seemed pretty genuine.
Was it the like romance gods?
I know. Maybe they're like, nope, this isn't meant to be. But regardless, Myron, I'm sorry if you went to the sushi joint we agreed on. It was closed on Monday, which is my last note I sent to you, I also have my phone number, but it looks like you may not have gotten my phone number. So Myron, PSA, Lost Connections. Thank you very much.
You need to post a Craigslist ad.
Myron in Phoenix, who does IT. That's all I know. If anyone out there is a sleuth and wants to help me find that said date, thanks. If not, Myron, you can find me on Bewitched Banter. Shoot me a note on bewitchedbanter@gmail.com.
Oh, so I gotta read all the love notes.
Yes. Which leads me to y'all out there who listen to us ladies, us Bewitches every week. Please, 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 please rate, review, and subscribe because we really need to build our tribe of bad Bewitches out there. And anything you can give us, we really appreciate. So just a simple like, thumbs up, follow us, subscribe. We just would appreciate it. So thank you.
It means the world to us. If you could just leave us a review, it could be a few words, like a video. It honestly just helps boost our visibility, and we desperately need that. So please do that for us. We work really hard. And if you're listening to the podcast and you enjoy it, we'd love to hear it. It honestly makes our day.
It really does. So, end scene for my PSA. But back to Harry and Meghan and the royal family. So as we know, these two are on quite the press tour these days, not only with the launch of their Netflix documentary, Harry and Meghan, but also of Prince Harry's book called Spare. And Spare evidently relates to him being the basically last in line to the throne.
And they're raking in, I want to cut
please.
in here. Also, they're raking in millions. So I'm a little cynical about, like, they got paid $100 million for the documentary, and then Harry got $40 million to write the book. So while we're talking about that today, we need to keep that in context.
1000%. And I have a whole schlog on that, actually.
Okay, good.
Schlog. I don't even know if that's a word. I have a whole thing.
Spiel.
Schlog, spiel, whatever about that, because my mom was saying the same thing. But after watching The Crown, that I became so obsessed with after watching this documentary, I do have a lot more sympathy, because I've never been a royal, go figure, sympathy for the scrutiny that people in the spotlight go through.
100%. I mean, I think there is something to be said that they didn't choose that life. Like, there's a difference between actively going out and trying to be famous and, like, become a movie star. Child stars don't know that, but when you're an adult, you know what you're getting into. I mean, no one can really know, but I mean, being a royal, you're like, no choice. That's your life.
Exactly.
But also, sometimes, like, when you watch the documentary, which we're probably going to talk about later, there's parts of you are like, oh, I feel sorry for them. And then you're like, why am I feeling sorry for someone who's so rich?
They're like in Tyler Perry's mansion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, he was obviously to promote the book and the documentary. Harry was this week on 60 Minutes with Anderson Cooper to promote said book. Obviously, the press tour, like I said. The book has plenty of bombshells, according to the media critics that have had a chance to review it and interview Harry. But what I loved so much about The Crown was not obviously, yes, it's dramatic and all that, but what drove me in so much to this horrible family, because they are horrific human beings, frankly, at the end of the day, they know their way around the media. I mean, they're fucking media experts, just like the Kardashians, but they're royal versus sucking somebody's dick to be famous. So regardless, I do appreciate their media savvy. And that said, I have a brief little poll here, because I don't know if you know this, but I'm sure you do. Would assume it. The palace, of course, had no comment to Harry's book release. And this poll was asking about should they comment on his interview versus the book. And of an overwhelming 45.9% of PR folks said they would advise their client to not comment. I'm not in that camp by any means. I think that shows omission. I think it shows lying. And I was just so taken by that. And after watching The Crown, like I said, it really is the palace's policy to turn the blind eye and look the other way.
Yeah, I do feel like we're only hearing one side of the story. So it'd be interesting. I mean, unless I know they're probably being told not to say anything, but I think we have to take all of it with a grain of salt too, because we're like only hearing Harry and Meghan's side.
Exactly. And this one quote from that article from a practicing PR person, Ron Foreigner, president of Truscott Rossman and former reporter for the AP, which is the Associated Press, he says that a quote, no comment is a missed opportunity, and it is a quote, surrender and surrendering means losing. So never pass up the chance to tell your story, Palace. Wink, wink.
They're listening to us.
Of course, the Queen. Well, no, she from heaven. She from the heaven of England. Even when you don't know how others are telling your story, you should always respond. And by the way, Anderson made this point very clear in the interview. The palace asked to see all the questions that 60 Minutes was going to ask Harry. And in media, you have every right to refuse. It's very poor practice to show your hand to your source or their people beforehand, right? Because that's not journalism. So otherwise, that's you just basically doing the palace's bidding, and that's not ethical. So that's just one cool thing I just wanted to say from a personal level. All right, but back to the documentary. As you know, I was sick as fuck during the holidays. Like, I didn't even get out of Teddy's bed. Like, for those of you who don't know, I sleep in my nephew's room on his bunk bed bottom, because otherwise I'm sleeping in a haunted basement. No thanks. But I did manage to watch the documentary, like I said, with my sister, and became very obsessed with this family and started watching The Crown for like the last month. And Amy, you told me to watch this shit like years ago, but I finally
I started watching it during the pandemic.
That's what it was.
I think The Crown is kind of a slow burn for me. It was slow and it took a while to get into. But during the pandemic, there was nothing better to do. And that's the only time in my life I drank whiskey neat. That's why I was watching
right. I forgot about that. And you know, when Tiger King was done, what else the fuck were we gonna watch, you know?
Oh, this was like a year and a half into the pandemic.
Oh,
this was, I think, right before the vaccine came out.
Oh, gotcha.
I started watching it. Me and Corey had this like routine where we would like do a workout outside and then go home and watch like The Crown and then like other dumb shows.
Oh, that's when I got my RuPaul addiction. So you were on The Crown, I was on RuPaul. Yay.
Yeah.
But anyway, obviously it's a very dramatized retelling of that family and their history from when Elizabeth took reign essentially as a young woman. But really I observed, and what I have been observing, is a pattern of delusional, entitled, out of touch, stuffy, incestuous white people. And dare I say it, the R word, racists.
I do have to comment on that, though.
Please do, because my next sentence is, tell me what it was like growing up with British parents and your relation to even giving a shit or not about this family.
Well, and we know it was never a discussion with my family. My family could care less. Like, I remember we've had this conversation before on the podcast, but you're like, oh, you text me, your parents are in England when the Queen died. I was like, yeah, they could care less. Like, no one cares. But I do think The Crown, in a sense, I know it's a show. It's supposed to give you emotions towards them. And I don't want to say I feel sorry for them because they do have a lot of privilege, but I also could see, like, I actually enjoyed the earlier seasons more than the modern day ones because I didn't know any of that stuff. But I think seeing their relationships and how they had to act, especially like the Queen, I did have some sympathy for her, like the way that they had to live their lives. And also how like the kids couldn't be kids.
Yeah.
And also I'm not making excuses. I don't want this to come across I'm making an excuse for any of them because they can educate themselves. But I do feel like they live in like a sheltered world where they don't know any better. But I mean, obviously at a certain age, we have everything at our fingertips. You can educate yourself. So at a certain point, at a certain age, it does become on you that you haven't educated yourself. But there are parts of me that you're like, damn, it seems just awful. I would not want to be a royal family member.
No. And that's basically Harry's whole point of all of this media he's acquiring for him and his family.
Are you on first name basis now?
Yeah, we're tight. What up,
Harry?
Oh my
Harry.
God, he's calling me right now.
Put him on speaker. Put him on
Meghan
the podcast.
No.
Oh my God, what?
And so, but you know, back to the big R word. Yes, that's a big red label and target that isn't necessarily always fair to blanket someone as such. However, to that point, Prince Harry never calls his family racist. He doesn't. And that's to your point, because they aren't necessarily, but it's all overt shit, or sorry, covert subtle shit, right? That's
benevolent. We went over that last
benevolent biases and racism, which is disgusting. I think, frankly, worse because it's fake. So again, he never calls them that explicitly, but again, I think personally their behaviors speak for themselves, not only in the dramatized series The Crown, but also in real life. And there's only one word to consider that, and that's colonization. That's it. That's all I can say. So what we do know, however, in Spare, besides him calling his family racist, he actually calls out, as I said at the top, that he may have well been in a death cult.
Tell me the tea. Or spill the tea.
Oh, how perfect. Are you sure I'm not British because of my obsession with tea? In context, this is in Harry's memoir. And it's really, just before I read a quote from it, it's really, if you think about his whole life as a young boy, he lost his mom. He is living in all these old places, but also ritualistic type of cultures, right? Like the things that you just said, like they make them do all this BS that's so not anachronistic, old. So here's what he says in his memoir, or writes in his memoir. Quote, I now saw that even in our finest moments and my best memories somehow involved death. Our lives were built on death, our brightest days shadowed by it. We cherished and crowned and graduated, married and passed out or military graduated our beloved bones. Windsor Castle itself was a tomb. The walls filled with ancestors. The Tower of London was held together with blood of animals used by the original builders 1,000 years ago to temper the mortar between the bricks. Outsiders called us a cult, he says, but maybe we were in a death cult, and wasn't that a little bit more depraved? End quote. So, frankly, I think this Newsweek article took it a little bit out of context. They latched right on to the death cult comment.
I mean, that's a good headline. Everyone's searching Harry and Meghan, so that's a good clickbait.
Exactly. And the more and more I thought about it, maybe it's not a death cult, but it certainly is a cult of betrayal and lies and jealous siblings and incestuousness. And, it's really some really traumatic things that, yes, they lived in this gilded, I'll call it a gilded cage, honestly, right? Because they're never able to be themselves, like you said. And now, for those of you who aren't following, him and his brother are estranged. And it's really fucking sad. Just because Harry, God forbid, followed his own heart, just like, by the way, his father did, just like his great uncle did. And yet his dad gets to stay. Fuck that. It's just very hypocritical. And I'm not down with that. So that's the context of the death cult quote.
Okay.
But real quick, for those of y'all who...
So they're not actually in a death cult.
They're not actually in a death cult. But
that's disappointing.
I know. But frankly, you know what? They're in the business of killing rumors, obviously. And this sounds really depressing, but killing any real joy, honestly, that any one of them could ever feel. All right. So back to cults right quick. Just a recap. 1, the leader is the ultimate authority, as you covered. 2, the group suppresses skepticism. Okay, so that could be related to the Queen pushing down all negative press about them, which is in essence the reason that she made Charles marry Diana. That's her fault. That's on her. She made that shit happen. Number 3, the group delegitimizes former members. Look at Harry and Meghan right now. Look at what they did to Diana. Just saying. 4, the group is paranoid about the outside world. I would argue they don't know a thing about the outside world, as I said.
That's probably very true.
Number 5, the group relies on shame cycles. Probably. They probably bring up the past a fuckload. Number 6, the leader is above the law, which the sense of self-grandeur that she really believed that she was next in line to God in the English church or the Church of England, blew my mind. Fuck you. No, you're not. All due respect, Your Majesty, you are not next to God. No, get out of here. Yet this is what these, for generations before her, obviously, were literally embedded with. It's disgusting. Ew.
Do we really know she thought that, though?
Yeah, by her actions. Because if she didn't think that, she would allow divorce. She would have allowed her children to be happy.
But that was more, I think that was more about, tradition. I don't think that's about her being next in line to God. Do you really think? I don't know if I'm not standing up for her, but do you really know that she thought that?
I don't really know that, no. But
where'd you find that? I guess my question.
That was just a speculation. But
oh, okay.
But
I feel like that's more to keep image. They're
right.
The royals don't get divorced. This is what we do.
Right. And in the context of her being the second of it's like the Church of England, her God, then her, though, in what from what I understand from the show. And again, it's fictionalized. I get that. But
I was like, where are we getting
so
all our
maybe
are we talking about the show or are we talking about real life now?
but I do think in real life she must have. It's to some extent, right? Because again, yes, if there's the image problem about divorce, but the image problem stem from it being a religious marriage being a religious right that you can't break. So anyway, speculation gone wild.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where are we getting our facts?
Number 7.
Are we Fox News now?
Fuck no. I'll take a Fox News check. 7. The group uses thought reform methods. So again, like aligning to follow the leader. Number 8. The group is elitist. Oh, what do you know? That's not the British family or royal family. Number 9. There's no financial transparency, which maybe there is internally. Obviously, to the public, there's not. But we do know that they have quite some wealth.
That's why most British people hate the royals. Because they're paying for them to live this lavish lifestyle, and half of the British people are like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah, and then you have fucking gross ass Andrew being a nasty ass pedophile. Anyway.
He's not part of the royal family anymore either. He got denounced.
Oh, he did? Shit, I lived under that rock. Well, good. But back to Harry and the family as a death cult. Again, perpetuating like this cycle of morbidity and death and just deeply fucked up centuries long family drama. And again, I would argue maybe generational trauma. So yes, they're wealthy. They're born with everything in their hands or silver spoon in their mouths, as we say. However, at 23 years old, Harry was really not in a good place. He, had lost Diana, I think it was only 15 or 12 years old. And so just, he struggles through that whole thing. And he was very candid with Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes and how he resorted to drinking and drugs. And he never spoke about it, never even cried because he didn't know how. He didn't confide, not even in William. To be holding on to that level of loss and trauma as a young boy, like I can't even imagine. But at 23 years old, he actually tried, what he told Anderson Cooper is that he told his personal driver that he wanted to reenact the drive that killed his mother. I don't know, but he was so obsessed with trying to prove that it was the media and the press's fault that had no repercussions for.
So I do have something to say about this.
Yeah.
I understand owning the narrative. I think if things were being said about me, I wanted to clear the air. But then there's also a side of me where he knew what he was doing by making that documentary, by writing that book. You are burning bridges with your family. If you really wanted to if your family really matters to you and is your priority, should you take $100 million documentary deal? Should you take a $40 million book deal? Like, if you really want to build these relationships, that doesn't seem like healing. And like saying you want to have a relationship with them, I think if I was on the other side, I'd be like, that's really easy to say you want to have a relationship when you just took a huge fat check and then said everything about me and I couldn't comment on it. I'm not saying that I'm not saying I'm taking either side, but there are a little bit questionable. And then they say they want to live their lives in privacy and be left alone, but all they're doing,
all this, yeah.
I'm like, that's all we're talking about is Harry and Meghan. So
right. Well, hey, remember, he grew up being an expert on this, right? This is all that family knows is manipulation of press, and they're damn good at it. So,
oh, definitely, yeah. I guess there's like two sides, and that's where I kind of stuck because I'm just like, that's your family.
Also, the family did have plenty of opportunities to comment, but they chose no comment, as I said. Also, according to Harry, again, one side, but he and Meghan have literally said, we'll apologize publicly. Tell us what for and why. Like, just let's do this. But the family won't do it. So who knows what the real truth is? Again, I think it's just the family controlling that narrative, because they're so good at it. But you brought up a great point too, and they have gotten Harry and Meghan critics for taking money so publicly. So
yeah, I just don't think there's any coming back from that. Like, he can't sit there and say, I wanted them to be my family when you do that. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I don't think you would probably want to maintain, or I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong that he did it because it's his truth. But I also think when he sits there and is like playing all innocent, like, oh, I want to still be like part of the family, it's kind of like, no, you burned that bridge.
Yeah, I could see that, which is funny. My next piece is exactly what you said at the top. Like, my mom was like, ugh, I don't feel too bad for them. They living in this $100+ million mansion, blah, 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 or $400-something million mansion. And I actually was like, listen, Mom, like, I get that. I don't feel bad for them financially by any means, but like, think about how it must feel to live by someone else's puppet strings your whole life. Plus your mom dying when you're so young. Like,
no, and you could live the best life ever, but like, mental health is still there, and your reality is your reality despite your financial, like,
right.
what your aspect, I guess, or how famous you are.
Yeah, and mental health comes into play a lot with Harry himself, but also Meghan and Diana. And I'll touch on that here in a second. Anyway, we know Spare, the book, reveals lots of family drama, including mentioning them as a death cult. I see them more as press hungry, power hungry people with the crazy delusions of grandeur, again, thinking they're holy. But other very telling things kind of also came out on this press tour, besides the death cult. Something that I latched onto was how, like, the family or the people that serve them, their inner circles, kind of, and their private secretaries, they fucking called Meghan a witch. Did you know that?
I'm not surprised by anything they called her. They called her lots of awful things and suggested horrible things about her.
Yeah, racially biased undertones under all of them.
Definitely. 100%.
And it grosses me out. The anger meter's rising on this section, so here we go. So the racial undertones of many other things, but a witch being one of them. This context that came out was in the 60 Minutes interview with Anderson Cooper. And, you know, as I said, Harry was really depressed after Diana died, obviously, and again resorted to drugs, booze, not self-harm, but like
self-medication.
Self-medicating, right? With all these different substances. And then he went to Afghanistan. When he got back, he fell in love with Meghan. And the whole family, everybody around him said he had changed. But not, oh my God, man, you changed. Like, you look great, man. Like, you're happy. Good for you. Instead, it was, ugh, he's changed. It must be that bitch or that witch. It must be her. You know, it was all the blame on her for separating him from his family and making him change, even though it was for the better.
That we know of.
Exactly.
I'm putting you back. I feel like you really are into this story.
I am. I told you I was.
100% sold.
Well, because honestly, so much of the narrative tracks.
I agree. I felt that way when I was watching the documentary, but then I like stopped watching. You kind of have to sit and think about it for a second. And you're like, this story is being sold to me, and it's been edited and pieced together perfectly to make me feel this way and have an emotional reaction. So yeah, I felt that way, but I guess I'm just like also looking at it like, what's going on too on the other side we don't know about.
Yes, and they called her a witch with so many undertones of, okay, you're perpetuating the angry Black woman, you're perpetuating the Black diva narrative by doing all this.
Well, I hated how the media treated her too, like the way they would describe her, like the very opening scene when they said that she was from Compton, and she's like, I'm not from there.
Exactly.
Not that it matters where I'm from, but it's just like the stupid headlines they would use because she's a person of color.
Exactly. And there's so much more than just, as we know, the word witch has been used for centuries, probably millennia, to quiet women, to kill us, to murder us, to have us be judged by the court of public opinion. And they're doing no different with Meghan, and it's just really fucking disgusting. The royal family called Meghan a bully, to the royal staff. And again, that's the angry black woman or diva trope. And it really fucking pisses me off for her. Like, no. There's like,
I
get the
mean, to
fuck
be
out of here.
honest, that's not the worst. I'm totally getting the sentiment. I'm not trying to make light of it. But if Corey's family called me a bully, I'd be like, they could call me a lot worse.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so, I think what gets me so mad again is how it's the quote unquote benevolent racism, like we were saying. And it's like, it gives them a cover, and it shouldn't, because they clearly have opinions that aren't necessarily up to the times.
Well, I don't think it's in question that they're racist, and that's part of their. I mean, that's evident with the Oprah interview.
Right.
I mean, that's not a question.
It relates to everything that we do and touch and talk about, and all my passions. So you have the press, manipulating the press, and free speech, and how do you react in these situations, and like being your own mouthpiece, and really knowing how to manipulate your own narrative and owning your own narrative. And that's like, and then using again the stupid like tropes that keep perpetuating themselves about women of color. Of course she's a witch. Of course she's magical. Fuck you. She is in love with the prince. He's in love with her. Fuck off. Let it be a happy ending Disney story, right? But no, they can't do that.
And I think that's what in the documentary they highlighted. It was like beautiful. It was like a celebration that is going to be like the first person of color to be part of the royal family. It's like, now we're going to have more representation, not just white people. And I think a lot of people, British people, were excited about that. They're like, oh, they're diversifying. And then kind of all that beauty was taken over by all the hate.
Yep. Leave it to that family. My God. I just like, and it's all because of jealousy, right? Because same thing happened with Diana. Even though she's not a woman of color, she got more attention because she's beautiful, she's vibrant, she's, oh, I don't know, kind, doesn't treat people like lepers. And Harry and Meghan were starting to, as you saw from the documentary, like usurp William and Kate, and God forbid they did that just because of who they are. And I don't know. I am really immersed in this drama, as you said.
Yes.
And it really it upsets me. But the very last bombshell, well, not the very last, one of the
There's probably
last
gonna be
ones
plenty more
I'm covering is that Harry said Camilla sacrificed him on her personal PR altar, because during the time that she was trying to get in with the family officially, Harry was going through a really hard time, and she would trade stories, negative press about him, so she would garner positive press for her and Charles. And it's just really selfish and disgusting. His father couldn't give two shits, and that's clear now, as we know. I think, if anything, if we're going to say equate them to a death cult like Prince Harry does, they are killing themselves, and they're doing it to themselves. So, yeah, that's what the fantasy world the royal family lives in.
And Krista knows all the dirty deets. She's the expert.
I'm the press secretary now to the Duchess and Duke. But anyway, that's the end of what I have. And again, like you said, you have to take both sides. It's not just about Harry and Meghan, and it's not just about the palace. However, past behavior kind of dictates who people are usually, and the palace is notorious, obviously, for many horrible things in humanity. So
100%. And I don't think they're, and I'm not saying that as they're innocent. I just would like to know, is there a reason, and we won't know unless they come forward with their story, that they don't like them as a couple that we don't know? You know what I mean?
Because they got too much attention over William and
You
Kate.
don't know that truly, though. Like,
no,
I'm playing devil's advocate. But we don't know that.
Okay, then that leaves the racial card.
But we don't know that either. I mean, we know they're racist, but
however, they have had every opportunity to tell their story. And again, no comment has killed them, because now we're all speculating. Now, if they were just to be fucking honest, like real people, they could tell their story, but they're not going to, because they cover and lie and mire, and they trade in lies. And I fucking hate them. Wow, I'm passionate about this.
You are. The only purpose they serve is for tourism, and that's why I kind of feel like I could care less. And I think it's just cheap talk. And
have you ever been to Buckingham Palace?
Yeah.
Is it pretty?
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, you can watch like the whole changing of guards.
That's cool. I would do that.
Yeah.
All right. I guess
think
I'm
it's
more
a little...
British than you is the moral of this story today, of this episode. No, again, for me, it's about media and family drama, and I'm in it to win it for that.
No, I mean, I love hearing all the like juicy bits, but it is also, when we really boil it down, it's he said, she said at this point.
Absolutely. And that is,
not to make it boring,
great great advice from my skeptic friend. And it really is. So that's the end and the fantasy world that this royal family lives in. So that said, my toot beep is that they may not live happily ever after. Even the documentary shows that they are living greatly in Tyler Perry's mansion. I'm really just proud of them for coming forward. Yes, they're getting money for it. I know that that's a big caveat, and what they're getting criticized for. But for Harry, let's focus on him, to have the strength and the courage to leave behind his family for love. You know, he could have done anything, and so it's not money, because he could have had anything he wanted in the world. So he obviously does love her. And I think I'm being a sucker for love again. Oh my God, maybe I believe in love again. So that's my toot beep.
It took Harry and Meghan, like a billionaire couple, to make you believe in love.
Yeah.
And to have like the best producers in the entire world make a show about them. That's what it took. Okay.
Yeah, that's all. I want a Hollywood ending for my love story. But anyway, my toot beep also, for real though, is about Meghan. Like, she withstood a lot of shit, and you know, I can only imagine what she felt with her mom on the wedding day, just the pressure. And she withstood it, and she's a fucking diamond. Like, look at her. She's gorgeous. So
my toot beep is actually a Belgian-British woman. So,
okay.
Represent. And she's 19 years old. Her name is Zara Rutherford, and she became the youngest woman to fly around the world solo when she completed a 5-month journey spanning 5 continents and then more than 32,000 miles in this past year. And she broke 2 Guinness World Records, 1 for being the youngest woman to make the journey, and 2 for being the first woman to circumnavigate the globe in a microlight aircraft, which I don't know what that means, but
probably really, really small.
And
wow,
she got her pilot license in high school, so she's only 19.
Holy shit.
So I want to talk about someone from England who's doing cool things.
That's incredible. Get it, girl. I want to fly around the world.
I think that's terrifying by yourself.
I want to be flown around the world. I don't want to fly anywhere. I just want a handsome prince to fly me around the world.
I want a plane with a glass of champagne, with a bed. I can take naps when we arrive. I don't want to fly around the world. I want someone to fly me around the world, not me flying. Because I don't trust myself.
Same. No thanks. Yeah. No thanks. Well,
that's not a problem we're going to have anytime soon, though.
So rumor has it that the royal family's in a death cult. Peace, Bewitches.
Peace. Thanks for listening. Check us out on Instagram or bewitchbanter.com. Suggestions for the show? Emails at bewitchbanter@gmail.com. Credits, music Phantom Fun by Jonathan Boyle from premiumbeat.com. Podcasts edited and produced by Krista Hins and Amy Holt. As always, if you enjoyed, please rate, review, and subscribe.